Good afternoon, everyone, and very warm welcome from the special India Hub session at the ICT for Sustainability 2025. I'm delighted to have this engaged initiative wherein from the India Hub we got an opportunity to discuss and explore collaboration, see various innovations happening at the stage of sustainability. Without further ado, I would like to invite Aditi to set the stage and walk us through the agenda and theme for the today's session. Aditi, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Alok, and good afternoon to everyone once again. Today's session, Sustainability Solutions, ICT Startups as Instrument for Sustainable Change, brings together powerful voices from technology, policy, and entrepreneurship. You will hear from two startups leading the way in sustainable ICT applications, followed by a dynamic panel featuring innovators and ecosystem builders from across domains. Let's get started with our first speaker. We begin with mobility, where real time data, smart routing, and digital platforms are transforming how India moves. Please join me in welcoming Chartr, a startup revolutionizing public transport. They'll walk us through how ICT tools are reshaping the urban commute.
Hi, can I start?
Yeah, so we'll request Professor Pravesh, Biyani, an academician turned entrepreneur, leading the initiative of urban mobility and how ICT tools are being used. Over to you, Professor Pravesh.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope you all can see my slides. Yeah, okay, great. And then you can also hear me well, right? Okay, so thanks Alok and team for having me here. I just want to talk about our startup, but also more importantly, something that should be a product, whether it's from a startup or from a government, it's a different question, but a product that should be treated like a project, a project that should be treated like a product, which is called, in my words, public transport as a technology product. So generally, I'm not sure if the folks there sitting outside India have come to India or not, but if you come to India, you'll see that there's a lot of congestion, a lot of pollution, and a lot of folks moving almost in Brownian motion. And one of the reason that's the case is because, of course, we have a huge population, but also because mobility is not as organized as it should be. And the way to organize mobility is to create public transport. And by public transport, I just don't mean buses or metro subways. By public transport, I also mean footpaths. I also mean cycling paths, everything which moves, the people, right? And not the machine is a public transport. So public transport is a very important, part of mobility. And obviously, anything, if it is not treated as a product, and by product I mean that you should know your consumer, and you should build for your consumer so that they can use it and they can be delighted in using it. If that is not the case, that's a problem. So I would like to create a picture of of or at least give a submission towards making public transport feel like a product, and then introduce Charter, which is our product, which tries to improve public transport in India, and also in a couple of cities outside India. So that's the kind of the background of what I'm going to speak about. Now, why is public transport important? It's because it actually is a backbone of a city. It's really how the city moves. And as you can see in the right side, there's a picture which is often those who have seen the mobility presentations, this is the most important picture that actually conveys everything, right? That one bus, a single bus, is like 20 cars, right? And not just from positioning of space, but also in terms of emission. uh, this it's not even like nobody needs to convince anybody that public transport would emit substantially less carbon dioxide per kilometer than cars. It's very simple to understand and why that's the case. And not just that, not just environmental benefits, but also public transport is way cheaper in general than a car, for example, for commuters. So generally in India, it's almost 3 times cheaper, but it depends on the place also. So this is why public transport is important. And given that in 2050, most of the global population, especially India, which is expected to have around 1.5 billion people, 70% of it, which means around a billion people, are going to live in cities. It's very important that we make public transport livable, and not just livable, but also affordable. Not just sorry, cities livable, but as public transport affordable. And I'll not go into the graphs that you see in the bottom, but it is essentially just saying that, well, if you just look at the total cost of driving versus the total cost of transit, you'll see that there is a inflection point somewhere where the cost of transit actually is way lower than cost of driving, and then we'll come to that point later. So that's why public transport. But if this is so obvious, then why are we not investing enough, or why are we not making it better as much as we can? And there are a few answers. Some answers are global, some answers are local. For example, urban sprawl is a global phenomena. Almost all the US and a lot of West, I mean, Western Europe is quite good.
और पैसा बच जाए तो वही खेत में लगा दो। बच जाए कम, बहुत कम पड़ेगा। जमीन इतनी महंगी है।
I think, okay, yeah. Cool. So the reason why public transport is not appealing in every place is because of urban sprawl. And this is a huge problem. This has nothing to do with transportation really. It is to do with more urban planning and the way cities are designed nowadays. But now it has come to notice of most Western cities, especially in US, in Australia, etc., that we need to make urban sprawl less and less. But more importantly, even if there is no urban sprawl, for example, Indian cities are very, very much public transport friendly in terms of urban planning, but there are operational inefficiencies. For example, buses are not on time. There's little reliability, so people also don't use it, and that is exactly where the product thing comes, right? If you don't make your product reliable, if you don't make your product something that people know, they know what to predict from it, then they'll never use it. So that's exactly where the data-driven decision making, so to say, comes, right? And that's where Chartr comes. We try to make reliable public transport by providing the right data to the users so that they can use it more in a more friendly manner. Right? That's the second question. The third question is, of course, competition from private vehicles. As you can see in the last slide, this one, right? That there's a point below which actually taking a private vehicle makes more sense, which is a very ironic thing to say, because we don't want private vehicles, especially for the shorter trips. And actually, it's cheaper to go on a private vehicle on a shorter trip, right? So this is very ironic, very contradictory to our sense of how we should operate, which means that there's something more, right taxation and congestion pricing, etc., that needs to be done so that we move more towards public transport. So there are many reasons why public transport is challenging. There are challenges: sprawl, inefficiencies, and of course competition from private vehicles without them paying their price for it. That is the more important point. So these are the challenges, and this is the right side is the AI generated picture, which I kept for a very specific reason, because now I think we are at a point where actually we have enough data and we have enough open source tech available to actually make sure that we improve public transport as a product, because the vendor lock-in, so to say, or only few companies trying to operate in a big space is not there anymore. We have a lot of open source available. So I think this is a great period, a great time in our lives where actually we can improve public utilities using open source, not just open source software, but open source technologies, including what you see in AI. So the open AI or Anthropic or whatever companies that you already know about, I think this is a great time to actually leverage them to improve the stuff that I was talking about, essentially reliability and data driven decision making. So this is exactly what we have been up to. We as a startup have tried to build two-sided technologies, one from the public transport agency side. So we provide them with the right tools. We tell them that what's going on with their assets. We tell them what's going on with their buses specifically. of their depots, how they're operating, which routes are punctual, which routes are not punctual, bunching happening and not happening, is the headway right, etc. So essentially trying to improve their product using our technology so that overall the user satisfaction or the user convenience increases. So that's what we do as a startup. And what we have seen after many years of working is that even improving public transport is not enough to have people moving in it. For example, this is Delhi's situation, that only less than 40% of locations in Delhi are within a kilometer of a metro station, which means that more than 60% locations or people living in Delhi actually are living far away from metro, which means that the last mile, I'm not sure if you have heard of the tuk-tuks or the rickshaws, right? The last mile becomes very, very important, and they are still not integrated, right? So essentially, metros and or buses and the last mile options, from where you go from your home to the metro station or from the metro station to your office, these guys are not integrated together, which means that there is no integrated planning, no integrated, so to say, ticketing so far. And that's exactly what we have built. We have tried to integrate, so not just improve public transport efficiency, but also integrate the other players that actually affect the ridership of public transport along with it, so that everybody enjoys, like a win-win situation for both agencies and for the people both, right? So just to give you a small picture, if we just integrate last mile up to 3 kilometers, the coverage of public transport increases from 40% to 80%, which is a huge number, right? So essentially you're talking about increasing the ridership to 100% because your coverage has now increased. So this is something that agencies can't do. This is something that the last mile operators can't do themselves. So we are the technology providers to both of them, so that both the last mile option and the public transport is integrated together. And essentially, this is the main crux of the matter that I was trying to talk about, that any product, right? Any product can be improved using three ways, right? Of course, these are the things from the customer point of view, that you make your product reliable, you make your product convenient, and you make your product comfortable, right? And I'm sure everybody, each of you have taken taxis, right? So this is something that we did. We asked a survey, we did a big survey to many people by asking them to rate their transport options by convenience, comfort, and reliability. And this is what we saw, right? Buses are in a bad shape, and taxis are very convenient. They're very comfortable, but they're not as reliable because of the traffic issues, and also they're expensive, which we are not even talking about here. And we saw that metro plus auto in India, at least in Delhi, metro plus auto actually fall in a very sweet spot, which is both convenient, because metro is quite convenient, less than taxi, but quite convenient, but they're very reliable. And overall, comfort is also not bad. And moreover, they are actually much cheaper than taxis. So this led to a right poem that you can see, which is of course not AI generated, which I wrote, but it is from John Lennon's song, which is Imagine, right? So can you imagine like a situation where essentially there's a metro stop right in front of your house, and there's a metro stop wherever you want to go, right? This is what we want to build, right? We want to build a situation where the convenient and the convenience and the comfort of traveling from A to B is so good that as if there's a metro coming to your house and there's a metro going towards a place wherever you want to go. And that's the dream. That's like the vision that we have in Chartr, that integrate the last mile options along with public transport in a way that users don't feel the pinch of, or don't feel the discomfort of, not going through a taxi, and with a much cheaper cost. That's the idea. And that will lead to fewer people, and hopefully fewer people, leaving using their cars and leaving them in their houses, and more people taking public transport and last mile operations, which will also improve not just the economics of the people who are using it. Also, it will generate more jobs, and overall the social benefits actually outweigh the cost and the effort by a large margin. So that's the main goal of Chartr, and that's what we have created. I'll not go into each of these things, but essentially what I'm trying to show you is that, well, we have you can, just like Google Maps, you can put a source, a destination, and it will tell you that, hey, you know what, you can take a metro from this point, and till that point, a bike taxi or an auto. A bike taxi is a very special Indian invention where people actually take bike to the nearby metro stations or the nearby places. So bike taxi would come, take you to the nearby metro station. They drop you there as if your friend or your sibling has dropped you, and then you can take the metro. And the whole experience will be seamless. There'll be a single ticket, which will pay for all the modes of transport, and as if the metro was right in front of your house, right? So that's the dream, and that's what we have been trying to create. And we have created this integrated ticketing flow where you just pay once, and all your rides are covered by just a single payment. So we have tried to integrate both bike taxis and autos, bike taxis and metro, and bike taxi and buses in Delhi. And I think this is probably the only product that has integrated ticketing and multiple modes of transport together. In fact, there is no reason why this can't be done even in US or in UK, where you have Uber right now, right? So you can use Uber as the last mile option. In fact, that's the pilot we are actually running right now in New Orleans in US, where for airport transfers, we are trying to use Uber as the last mile option. So there's an airport bus which drops in the downtown area, a couple of stops there, and then Uber is waiting for you to go to from the downtown to your house. So essentially, instead of paying $45 from airport to your home, you're essentially paying around $15. So it's like 60% reduction of cost. But obviously you spend a little more extra time because you have a bus. But in general, the savings versus time, is a very good trade-off in this case. So this is what we do in Chartr, and we believe that multimodal mobility can improve our cities a lot, both in terms of comfort, convenience, and reliability. And this is essentially what we're trying to build. So I'll just, I guess that's the time I had, right, Alok? So I'll just stop here, and if any questions or any comments, I'll be happy to take.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Urban mobility systems are often fragmented and data poor. How can ICT startups bridge this gap to create seamless and sustainable, inclusive public transport experience?
See, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point, right? So all we have done is essentially created, so-called ICT framework only, right? Where we are all we are doing is providing the right information to both the passengers and the folks who are taking these passengers, right? So like an auto person or a bike taxi guy knows that there's a guy sitting who wants to go from this place to this place. So we are, so essentially it's nothing but conveying the information to various stakeholders in some way, right? And trying to create a bridge, trying to create a product where all the information that is conveyed is then used for creating better experiences for everybody, right? So that's exactly what we're doing.
I'll just ask anyone in the audience here if they have any questions. Thank you very much. That was very interesting. Anyone here have any questions, comments?
Yes, I do have a question. Hello, I'm audible, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, sir, does this help in our greener motive, like making sustainable environment? Does it serve for that purpose?
So sorry, what? Can you repeat the question? Does it? What?
Does it serve for the greener purpose, like the sustainability goals we have, reducing emissions, energy use?
I guess so, right? Because when you have more people using transit and not cars, your emission comes down, number one. Number two, you are not, see, what is the meaning of sustainability? Sustainability means that you take less, and or whatever you take, you give it back, right? So sustainability means that, it's essentially when you, essentially a sustainable financial sustainability means that, when you earn 100 rupees or $100, you spend not more than $100, right? So exactly this is what we are saying, that when you take less from nature, or when you give negative stuff back less to nature, like emissions, and more people use same amount of resource, right? When you have a metro or a bus, more people use the same amount of resources per unit, per capita, right? Per capita use of resources is less, then things become sustainable, isn't it? So
Yeah.
sustainability, I don't know of any other example in mobility than public transport, and mobility is the biggest reason for emission, or at least one of the biggest reason, if not the biggest reason in many places. Mobility is something that actually causes harm to sustainability in most places. So when you buy a car, right, imagine you have such a, like, 3 ton worth of all that steel and iron and so many metals, and versus when you buy a bus, it's like just 3 times of car, but it is used by 20 times more people, so you are already 6 times more sustainable, isn't it? So to me, this is like as sustainable as it can get, pretty much.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I don't have a question, but I have not. Well, I do have questions, but I think it's probably better for the entire panel. But we have one here.
I think I have to go down.
Yep. While he's coming down, just one observation. There's a lovely sense of this, which is this is the situation we are in, and here is a pragmatic solution. And above that, you have the bigger questions, which is why do we have urban sprawl?
Yeah.
Why are we still using fossil fuel things? So I like the pragmatic about this solution. And just hand over for a question here.
Yeah, thank you. Florian here. I think it's 2 questions. So what I understood was that you can optimize the transport duration somehow, or just the combination. So that is more something of an lack of understanding from my side. And
Yeah.
the second question is it just the platform, or is there any AI based on it, or the potential of AI, and how this comes into place here? Because I think when we talk about big cities, there might be then also traffic jams and stuff like that, where I have to shift the transport mode very quickly. So question on how this is also reflected in Chartr.
I think the second question is really fantastic. You're so essentially dynamic, right? So you want to understand, do we do any dynamic routing or dynamic travel journey plan, right? And how is AI coming in? So the workhorse of AI is optimization. Everything that you see in AI is essentially something getting optimized, some objective function getting maximized or minimized. And that's exactly what we do. We minimize the number of transfers subject to a constraint of time that is being taken. So I'll just give you one, like a 30-second or 20-second example, is that suppose I am standing at a place A and a metro stop is very close to me, but it requires, and if I want to go to B, but it requires multiple transfers from that metro stations, you will probably not take it. On the other hand, if I'm again at that same place A and I say that, hey, don't take the nearby metro, but actually go a little bit further from your last mile option so that your transfer is minimized, you may take that more often than not. So that is my first answer, that yes, there's it's not just the travel time, but it's also the convenience that comes in the picture. And that's exactly where AI comes in the picture. What we also try to solve is like a Netflix problem, right? That if you like a certain genre of movie, let's say you like comedy, I like maybe I like maybe thrillers, right? And somebody else may like romantic movies. So it exactly like that, right? People have their commute preferences. So what we try to do using AI is to learn their individual preferences and provide them right transfer options. And so somebody might say, hey, you know what? I don't care for convenience, but I care for my time. So we'll give them a fastest option that is most reliable, that does not, will not be impacted by traffic, which is metro. But somebody says, hey, you know what? For example, in Delhi, girls have free ticket in buses. And if there's a girl who'll say, hey, I care for the price, so we'll give an option of the bus. So essentially, yes, there's an inherent AI or optimization, as I call it, inbuilt in whatever we do. And we also provide, predictions to the last mile folks that you are going to get so many people here. So why don't you stand there? Also that. Hope that answers.
Right, thank you very much. As somebody that likes sci-fi, science fiction, I'm always a bit worried about the AI aspects, but that's just me, I suppose. Thank you very much. It was really interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.